Good day guys, and welcome back to another video on our food ordering application. In this video I'll be creating an order management system which is very easy to create and easy to implement, and this system will be easily used in any of your application. Any e-commerce application, you can implement this order management without requiring much setup and much understanding of state management and the rest. If you're just joining us today and you want to understand just the order management, you can check out the code in the description to the previous project, so you can just start from where we are right now. And at the end of this video I'll be placing the code in the description so you can also get it. Finally, if you've not subscribed to my channel, feel free to subscribe. It helps me and gives me the motivation to build more amazing content for you guys. So without wasting any much of our time, let's start our tutorial. After we run our application from our previous video, we will go to our product details to continue from there. As we can see, we have some UI on the product detail, but firstly let's create a loading screen for this product detail. I would first change this to a stateless widget. I'll set a boolean is loading equal to true. This is going to toggle the loading shimmer on the page. So on this page we want to remove every item below the image. So after the image, we wrap our item in a column and set the main axis size to minimum, along with the cross-axis alignment. Once we are done, we can now add a condition. If it's loading, we are going to show a product detail loader. This is a widget which I'll create just now. On the widgets, I'll create the product detail loader. This is going to be a stateless widget. Since the whole widget is going to be a loading widget, we just wrap everything in a shimmer. And within the shimmer we have our column. Once we have this, we can go to the product detail and import this widget. I'll also copy the items in this column because we want our shimmer to be similar to the existing items. So I'll just copy this and paste it here. To show the shimmer, we just need a container with a color within it. So I'll just use a normal container with a width of 100 and a height of 30 and set the color to white. I'll duplicate this in the other areas where we need our loading item. So once we are done, we can see our loader. To make it similar to the details on the home screen, I'll set the cross axis alignment to start. Okay, this is good enough. And finally, let's remove this add to cart button. We don't want to allow the user to add anything to the cart while the page is loading. So we set the button to no. This removes it. Let's leave the product detail page for now and go to the order page and this screen is called the bag screen. On this screen, we'll build the UI for the bag, which is usually called cart in some other apps. To give it a transparent white app bar, we use force material transparency and set it to true. For the title, we'll set a text with my bag. Within the body, we want our items to be able to scroll, so we use a list view. From our design within the bag, we have each item grouped according to their restaurants. So we'll use a column within the list view. This is to enable us capture each restaurant with the items below it. So we'll set the main axis size to minimum. Let's just add an image to this. We'll replace this later with the actual image for the product. Because this item will be a list, I would create a widget for it. So let's remove the image for now and create a new widget. We're going to call this widget the bag item widget. Within it, let's add a column with a minimum size, and within the column we have a row where we'll paste our image. And underneath the restaurant's name, I'll add the bag item widget. So let's work on the bag item widget. The last item on this column will be a row which contains both the price and the name of the increment widget. This is the widget used to increase or decrease the quantity. To create this widget, I'll just copy the existing button in the product increment widget. So copy the method and go back to our product and go back to our bag item widget and paste it. I'll just comment out all of these functions and we'll update them at a later time. Let's wrap this in an expanded widget. Then place our buttons. I'll add some changes to this button so it fits our design. Below each item on the design, we have a dotted line. We're going to achieve this using a library called dotted line. So go to our pubspec.yaml, and within it, we'll add our library. We're supposed to place our dotted line under the row widget. So within this row widget, we add our size box and dotted line. So this gives us the effect we are looking for. With this, let's go into the implementation for both the carts, which is called bag in this case, and the product details. I'll start with the product details. We'll be creating a model called product detail model. We'll be taking the values from this product JSON because we already have them sent to Firebase. If you need a refresher on how to send these files to Firebase, you can check out my video about how to upload files to Firebase. It is going to be at the top of the video, or you can go back to my previous tutorial on this section where we uploaded this file to Firebase. So I'll just copy this to see the template for what I'm working on, and under it we'll create the product detail model. For each of the sizes, we have just one key and one value, so I'll be using a map entry instead of an actual map. The command to create the options again is the command and full stop for Mac, and I think control and full stop for Windows. So let's create a factory constructor which is going to take a JSON, which is a map, and return our product detail model. On the size, I would like to convert the data into a map entry. So I'll map each of the values and return a map entry for each of them. I also map the variants and the drink just to ensure that there are no errors on this page. This concludes the product detail model. I also create a model for the bag, and this is going to hold the items that are added to the bag. We'll call the model the bag item model, or just bag item. If we look at the design, we'll need the product ID first, along with the restaurant ID, so that we can group them according to the restaurant. We also need the restaurant name, which is displayed at the top here. Then the name of the product, the image, the size selected by the user, and we'll need the price, the details. Then using the options, we generate a constructor for this. We also need the quantity, but it will not be final because we want to update the quantity on this model. So we just add the quantity and set a default value of 1. I also create a get variable. This is going to be the total price, and it's going to be the quantity multiplied by the price. So whenever we update the quantity, this updates automatically. Since the bag screen will have multiple items, let's create a model which is going to hold each of these items, and we'll call it the bag model. Firstly, it's going to hold the list of bag items. Adding an underscore before the name makes the variable private. Let's create a method to group each of these items according to the restaurant. We would also need a variable that will get us the total price of all items in the bag. There are 3 methods that are needed on this bag screen, and which is the add to cart and the update quantity, and finally the remove item. The add to cart add an item to the bag. The update quantity updates the quantity of each item, and the remove item removes the item. So let's work on each of them. And first, we would like to check if it exists. So we add the boolean, which is by default false. So looking through the items on the list, we check if the product ID is the same, and if the details within the product is the same. So if both of them are the same, we just need to update the quantity on that index with the quantity that was set. Then we set the item exists to true, and we exit the for loop using a break. Outside this, we check if the item does not exist. That is, if after going through all the loop we don't see the item, we add the item into the list of items. So this is it for the add to cart. To update the product quantity, we just need the ID of the product and the quantity we want to update. Then we map through the items. Then if the ID is the same, we want to increase the product quantity. So we just return the existing item. On this place, on this function, we will not only check using the item, we will also check using the detail, because on this application each of the items has different variations and we can only check the variation using the detail. So we'll also check if the detail is equal to the item.detail. Finally, to remove an item, we also use the ID and the details and check if we can find it on the list, and if we can find it, we remove it. Let's go back to our product details so we can fetch the products from Firebase. The variables we'll be needing here are the product detail, the size index, which will be a default of 0, so by default it will always pick the first size. Then using a nullable variant, below the build method, we'll create a function to fetch the products. Within our init state, we fetch the products. So the product always loads whenever we open this page. To see this in effect, let's leave this page and go back to the page. So after we fetch the products, we can replace the items here with the actual values. We start with the price on the app bar. Next, we replace all the sizes here. We use a list generator to get the product detail sizes. And whenever we click on each of the size, we want to update the size index. We set the quantity whenever this changes. And for the variants, we'll also remove each of the constant values and replace them with the values from the product details. So now we have the variant, and I didn't add the set state for the drink, so that's why it doesn't update. So now we can update either the variant or the drink. So the whole idea of this page is that for each of these items that is ordered, the user can select a size and the price changes with the size. And for the variants, the user can select a variant without increasing the price. And the pet drink is more like a complementary to the order, which is given for free. Right here we're having an error called the late initialization error. This occurs on these actions. So on the actions we check if the widget is loading. If it is loading, we don't show it. So you can see that this fixes the issue. If we go back and come back to this page, we don't face the issue again. Finally, we have this select pet drink which always shows up. So to fix that, we would go to the select drink option. We wrap it in a square bracket and we check if the product details drink is empty. So if it is not empty, we show this widget. We'll do the same for the variant. We're done with the body of the widget. Next, we'll create a function to add the item to the bag. And this function is going to be called add products. Firstly, let's get the details for each of these products. The detail is the information about the size, the variant and the drink. Because of the variants and the drinks are nullable, we'll check if they are null before we add them to the list. Next, let's create a bag item which will be called item. From this method, we see we don't have access to both the restaurant ID and the restaurant name, so we'll pass it to this widget. So we go back to the product list widget and add the restaurant, which also takes us back to the restaurant details screen. Where would I have to add the restaurant also. The problem with this add product to cart is that it just creates an instance of the bag model, but this instance doesn't persist throughout the whole application. For our application, we want the user to have only one cart. So to fix this, we'll go to the bag model and change this into a singleton. A singleton is a class which has only one instance. So wherever this class is called, all the variables are going to be the same, and if the variables are updated in one part of the application, it will be reflected on the other parts of the application. This is useful in our application because we want the bag to be updated in the product details screen and have it reflect in the bag screen. So to do this in Flutter, first we create a private constructor for this model. Using an underscore, we make the constructor private. Then we create a single instance for this model using the static variable. Finally, we create a public factory method. This is going to return this same instance of the class. So whenever this class is called, we always get back this instance. So this fixes the issue. But before we start adding anything to our cart, let's go back to the bag screen and update our values into the bag screen. Within our build method, we'll create an instance for this bag model and we'll call it the bag. Under the bag, we create a bag group. This is going to get the grouped bag items. We want to return it as a list. So using this list, we can now populate this column for each restaurant. Remember, the grouped lists group all the items according to their restaurant. Within our list view, we map through the bag group and we return our column. Since we don't have any item in the cart, this is empty. So let's add a state to tell the user that the bag is empty. Let's go back to our product detail and add more items into our cart. Seems like the button is not responsive, so we just created the add product method, but we didn't link it to the floating action button. So we go to the floating action button and in the onPressed we place the add product. So after this, if we click on the add to cart, it gets added and we leave the screen. If we go back to our bag, we can see one of the products has been added, but this is not the actual name for our product. This is because we're still making use of the templates which we use to create this widget. So back to the bag screen. For the restaurants, we'll use the restaurant name, which is the key of each of the items in this bag group. For our bag item widget, we want to look through each of the bag item values. So we cut this and use the bag item.values and map through. For each of the bag item, we need to update each of the values on display. So let's go to the bag item widget and add these variables. We will need the bag item, which is going to be called item. We also need the function to change the quantity and the function to delete. Finally, we need the quantity. We'll add this into the constructor. Now let's go back here and place all the required items. We will need to set states whenever we update these values. But this is a stateless widget, so we go up and convert it to a stateful widget. Once we add all the variables, we can go back to the bag item widget and replace them with their actual values. Now we can see that our values has been updated. Let's add more items to our carts. And see how it looks on the design. So let's try and increase the quantity. Seems like it doesn't work. So let's see what the problem is. So to fix this, we just add to list after the map, and this fixes all the problems. Last part of the bag screen would be our total price and the checkout button. Since I'll be using these widgets, I would copy it and create a method for it. We'll also add the value for the delivery and the total. Finally, we add our primary button. We want our total price to be bold, so let's add a variable here to set it to be bold. And with this, we have our application built. This concludes our checkout screen, and since this was a very long video, I would be stopping here, and in our next video we'll be checking out all of these products and working on the other screen. So I hope this video helped you. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and the code for this video is going to be on the description below. In case you missed any part during the video, you can always go there and check it out. See you next time.